Hi, I'm Ganesh Natarajan, Chairman of Honeywell Automation India and GTT Data Solutions, and I'm delighted to speak to you on the never-changing topic of leadership. Leadership, as we all know, has changed through the ages. It's been largely changed because of pressures from the environment, competition, and so on and so forth. But now there is a new technology push that is changing the way we will lead today and possibly in the future. And that's probably because of digital, the whole advent of AI and generative AI. And I thought we could spend a few minutes just discussing how that has happened, what will happen because of AI, and how should you as leaders be prepared for the changes you will see in the future. So let's start with the technology evolution. As all of us know, the old age of computers and mini computers and even PCs gave way very quickly to this whole concept called digital. And if I simplify digital for you, it's been all around social media, mobility, analytics, and cloud computing. And because of that, not only have we seen productivity go up in organizations, we've also seen substantial changes in the customer experience. In fact, people keep saying that the initial wave of digital was because of cost reduction. Places like Facebook and Google and so many others, it moved to experience, what you experience on Netflix and so many others. And the future is all about digital platforms. So platforms which will probably be created one time, but will be used by many, many people for doing various tasks and activities. One classic example is, of course, what we now call LLMs or the large language models, which we'll come back to. But what digital has really done is made sure that we moved from an era where all our information was actually historic information. I started my career at a time when materials managers used to look at maybe 1 week old reports on materials, non-moving, slow-moving items, etc., etc. And that was the whole era of inventory management. It moved to, of course, materials requirement planning. And because of digital, what has happened is a lot of the descriptive or maybe graph-based analytics that we used to use for decision making has moved very much to what we call predictive and prescriptive analytics. Predictive because through machine learning of large amounts of data and a bit of artificial intelligence, we are actually able to predict what will happen in the future, even in terms of the achievement likelihood of a production plan or the likelihood of fraud happening in a particular financial system. And whatever area you choose, there's a predictive analytics opportunity. And then, of course, there is something called prescriptive that has happened. If you look at Amazon, for instance, and you're buying a book, and Amazon suggests to you that people like you also bought this book, they're trying to prescribe. They're trying to tell you that, hey, maybe it'll be nice for you to read this book because it kind of suits your reading style and what you want to learn or what you want to read. So that's prescriptive. Now, because of this movement, the importance of the technology that makes it happen, which is AI, became very, very important going forward. And AI was chugging along. I think we've seen a lot of early avatars of AI like business intelligence, etc., etc. But suddenly, about a year ago, we've come across this whole landscape called generative AI. And generative AI is a creation of two very successful companies. One is NVIDIA, which makes these large graphic processing units, which means the sheer power of computing is beyond anything that you can imagine. And also, of course, OpenAI and what became ChatGPT. Multiple versions are coming out as we speak. And Sam Altman, the person who actually started ChatGPT, is really looking at making the large language models or the models by which you can train using very large amounts of data, the standard. So we were kind of inclined to believe that AI is going to be a heavy investment. I mean, just to give you an example, almost $500 billion of investment will go into AI companies in the next few years. And the market value of an NVIDIA has already crossed $3 trillion. And even Sam Altman's OpenAI, we're talking about multiple $billion. So in this context, one fine morning, not so long ago, a Chinese company launched something called DeepSeek. And DeepSeek was a very, very, very simplified model built over 2 years and actually changes the entire parameters or the dimensions of how much investment is required. And just before that, President Trump had announced an entity called Stargate, which is a project that involves people like OpenAI, NVIDIA, of course Oracle, and this would have been the biggest monopoly that America created for the world. But with DeepSeek, suddenly the playing field has become level all over again. Why do I say that? Because if you remember, we said that large learning models are nothing but training large amounts of data. Almost every aspect or every element of data could be put into this big GPUs, maybe tens of thousands of GPUs, and it could be made to work on a 99% efficiency basis because every data element in the world is there. But somebody started asking this question, saying, do we really want to spend $100 million and have 99% accuracy? Or are we okay with maybe 75-80% accuracy, but information or predictions delivered to you at a much faster rate? And that's where DeepSeek comes in. To use the jargon, they say that, look, this is not a learning model, it's a distillation model. That all the learning that has already been done by a large LLM can be distilled into managerially or leadership-wise useful data or useful information and can help you in decision making. It also relies on something which we're now calling inferencing. That if there is a certain data element that maybe a computer or you have looked at, how do you ensure that this data element can lead to more inferences and a chain of inferences that leads you to an actionable insight or a decision you can take? So essentially, what you're seeing here is that AI is now evolving to a stage where it can literally be your partner in every element of the activity. So what is there to be scared of? Nothing at all, except that if you look at some of the instances quoted by Yuval Noah Harari, the amazing historian, in his recent book Nexus, there are a few examples of things that you could be scared of. For instance, just to give you one example from real life, if you look at the unfortunate massacre of the Rohingya community in Myanmar, not far from here, you will find that a lot of it was created by algorithmic AI. Now what that means is, there was one cleric who was spewing hatred towards a particular community. And of course, there were many more tolerant people who were saying, hey, don't listen to all this and let's be more harmonious and work as a community. But unfortunately, the algorithm of the social media site, and I won't name it, was such that it automatically got more impetus or gave more relevance to things that were getting more eyeballs. And unfortunately, the unfortunate reality of this world, as all of us know, is that negative news gets more eyeballs than positive news. And which is why this cleric got a lot more eyeballs. The whole population of information on social media started being more negative, and it resulted in a tirade against this particular community. There are many examples. For instance, Mr. Harari also talks about the Lenin oppressive regime in Russia. And he said today if AI were available to Lenin, not only would people against the regime be maybe massacred or assassinated, but even people, even while they are being born or created, could be identified as potential traitors to the regime and could be eliminated. So all these are the scary parts of AI. But if you really look at it, if you let any technology go completely unharnessed, where you don't have any control over it, and the technology takes over your life, it's been true in the past, it can be much more true in the future with AI. So this whole advent of what we are now calling AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, and ASI, which is artificial superintelligence, if not supported by an equal level of human intelligence, could be disastrous. So what we are advocating, and this is really the last thing I wanted to tell you, is that you must build an environment within your organization, within your society, within yourself of dual intelligence. Now what is dual intelligence? The ability for us as humans to evolve so that we understand the threat and the potential of technology. At the same time, the ability for us to really understand what our own capabilities are. And if you make that happen, you'll find that dual intelligence combines the power of human intelligence, your whole team's intelligence, and the power of every technology you can harness, including artificial intelligence, puts it together, and the sum of the parts is much bigger as a whole. And this is what I think leaders of the future must do. All of us have been told, in fact, I myself built my career as a leader and built two amazing companies, AppTech in the 90s, and then Zensar Technologies from 2001 to 2016. And even today, the companies we're building, whether it's Honeywell Automation, whether it is GTT Data, are all built on an element of dual intelligence. Because in Honeywell, for instance, it's all about not just automation of buildings and processes, but how do you build intelligence into that automation effort. In GTT Data, we actually work primarily in the area of dual intelligence, where we are combining human intelligence within corporates, with young people, with the power of data, analytics, cloud, and of course, artificial intelligence. And this is really where I think we as leaders have an opportunity, because we must be able to operate on limited data, not necessarily wait for all the data to come in, because quick decisions taken based on limited data but reliable data is going to be extremely important. So how do you make that happen? Second is, how do you draw inferences? The point I was making earlier, that how does your insight get sharpened by use of technology wherever possible, and also using your own intuition or your own innate capability to understand a situation as much as possible. So if you make that happen, and I think if you look at the environment around you, what's happening in the geopolitical environment, what's happening with technology, both the environmental pull and the technology pushes is something you will be able to master. So go forth, make sure that you have the ability to be dually intelligent, and then you will find that the future is not as complex a place as you might have thought it to be. I am sure you're all enjoying this wonderful event, because this event is all about how to make leaders more successful. I wish I could have been physically there with you, but the reality is that I'm away at a board meeting the other side of town. But I wish you all the best, and I'm sure the learning during the day will be absolutely amazing. All the best.